Hey everybody, and welcome back to another max velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down a massive storm that'll bring an extreme severe weather threat across the southern plains and the Dixie Valley, as well as the threat for a large winter storm over the Midwest and Northeast this week. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of these situations and more in this forecast, but let's first begin with what's happening across the United States today. And we're first actually going to begin on the west coast of the United States. That is where a low pressure system is currently located near Washington. This will be the system that'll track over the Four Corner states into the southern plains and eventually through areas in the southeast and as well as the Midwest. And this will be the storm that'll bring severe weather along with the threat for a massive winter storm as well. We're also watching a very small low pressure system this afternoon and evening that's bringing a little bit of snowfall to the northern plains, a few inches as possible, but not really too concerning for tonight. Now, as we go throughout the next few days, as I mentioned before, tonight there is that low pressure system bringing a little bit of snowfall to the northern plains and maybe even into the Midwest by tomorrow morning. That begins to fizzle out, and by Wednesday night into Thursday morning, that is when that low pressure system will start to move into the southern plains, and this is a very concerning storm that we're watching. This isn't like something else that we've seen in the past. This actually could be very extreme with the potential for strong tornadoes and as well as even some extreme damaging winds. It is not something to be messing around with too much. I'll have more details on that a little bit later in this forecast, but again, this will really start to ramp up Thursday into Friday and eventually late Friday into Saturday. This will turn into a winter storm in the Midwest and as well as the Northeast. Now, let me break down the severe weather over the next several days, beginning with Wednesday. There is a slight risk of severe weather from Tennessee all the way back through Northeast Texas. The main threat out of this will actually be large hail, but there is a chance for maybe an isolated tornado or two and as well as some damaging wind gusts. Now, the much more concerning day will be Thursday. We very well could have a moderate threat of severe weather by tomorrow morning, but for right now, there is an enhanced risk of severe weather from eastern and northern sections of Texas all the way back through Mississippi. And now, before I go into specific details, I just want to tell you my opinion on this event. This could be worse than what we just saw in Oklahoma a couple of days ago. And I say that because this system has more instability, it has a higher amount of shear. Along with that, it is a much more primed setup a bit further down to the south and a lot more buoyancy and moisture to be able to create more severe weather here with discrete supercells and a linear line of storms being possible. With the Oklahoma event, it was just primarily a linear line of storms. So this could be very well worse than what we just saw in Oklahoma. I say could with a big pronunciation because obviously things could change a little bit, but this is something that you really want to be watching out for closely. We could very well see widespread damaging winds, a few strong tornadoes, and maybe even a violent tornado is not out of the question with the current setup that we have. But the slight risk does go all the way through Alabama and even into parts of North Texas. There is some uncertainty of where the storms will begin to form, hence why there is such a large area of the slight and marginal risk back over to the west, because obviously the cold front and the dry line will set up in one area. It will not be this entire region here that will see severe weather most likely. It'll be either here or here or here. It's a bit of a question mark on where that does occur, so hence there is some uncertainty there, but that will obviously become a bit more certain as we head into tomorrow. Now, the low-level jet is something that we really have to pay attention to because this is what helps to rotate supercell thunderstorms. Once we go throughout the daytime Thursday, the low-level jet becomes fairly strong, especially during the evening hours. The low-level jet around 50 to 60 knots, that is definitely in the range of at least a few tornadoes. Once we go into the overnight hours Thursday, the low-level jet becomes increasingly intense, and this could very well lead to a tornado outbreak, especially back over in Arkansas and Louisiana, and even back through Mississippi. That is where I would expect the greatest tornado threat for right now. Instability as well. The instability will be quite high, even in North Texas, which I don't expect a huge tornado threat here. There may be a few, but I would expect more of a damaging wind and hail threat with the storms that form here in North Texas. Instability values, by the way, upwards of almost 2,500 joules per kilogram. That is plenty of instability for some severe weather. This instability will be much lower by overnight Thursday into Friday morning for the severe storms in Mississippi, Arkansas, and Louisiana, which may limit severe weather a little bit, but there should just be enough for some severe weather. Now, in terms of the tornado parameter, this helps us give an idea of what kind of tornado threat we will see out of an event like this. And the NAM model is the only one that really goes this far out to show us these values, but for those for Thursday afternoon and evening, the values are between 1 to 3. Actually, the highest values back up in southeast Oklahoma. The values really increase, though, as the line line of storms as well as those discrete supercells become more organized back over in Arkansas as well as Louisiana. Values as high as almost 5 are currently being estimated by the NAM model. So this will be a very concerning area for the tornado threat in particular, but we may see that increase a little bit more in Northeast Texas. It is possible, but again, things may change over the next few days. I'll keep you posted with the latest. Tomorrow's forecast will have much more specific details. With that being said, make sure that you subscribe down below and click the bell icon so you get notified whenever a new forecast or live stream comes out. Now let's talk about the timing for severe weather on Thursday. Beginning with the afternoon hours, that is when some storms will fire up across areas in North Texas and southern Oklahoma. By around evening time, so around sunset or just after that, that is when that line of storms will start to become more organized across North and Central Texas. And by around the evening and overnight hours, that is when that line pushes into areas like Louisiana and Arkansas. And with this, we very well could see a QLCS situation. That does mean strong tornadoes are going to be possible in this area, along with embedded tornadoes in that line of storms. Once we go into Friday morning, that line pushes into Alabama and Mississippi and eventually into Tennessee, and then eventually going closer to the afternoon and evening hours, that severe weather threat will shift off to the east. Now, one thing to keep in mind, there is actually a low chance of snow out of this. I wouldn't expect a whole lot of accumulation in the southern plains, but there may be a brief coating in a couple of spots in Oklahoma. I'll have more details on that tomorrow. Now, there have been some big changes to the forecast across the Ohio Valley, a couple of notable ones. One, the severe weather threat for Friday is going to be much further north than what I mentioned yesterday. It could go as far north as areas in Indiana and Ohio. This is the area that it could go as far north as, with moisture surging into areas like Indiana and as well as Ohio. But another notable change, if you remember, I was talking about that winter storm in yesterday's forecast. Look how far north and west the European model has shifted that snow. And I mentioned it yesterday. Things are going to change over the next few days. This is a rather large change here across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. So at this point, the European model is indicating that snow will be much further off to the north into areas like the Midwest. This means, it doesn't exactly mean that you'll definitely see snow, because again, things could shift a little bit over the next 24 to 48 hours, but heavy snow is now looking more possible across the Midwest and Wisconsin, Michigan, as well as Illinois. In terms of snowfall accumulation, if it were to go this far to the north, it isn't much different from what I mentioned yesterday. We're still talking 8 to 12 inches, maybe a couple of spots getting over a foot of snow. No big changes in that department, but obviously the snowfall has shifted much further north in terms of the current estimate from the European model. Back over to the Northeast, the changes do transpire into areas over here as well. Snow will be possible, but at this point, low pressure system is forecasted now to go a bit further off to the north, and snow is likely to happen a bit further to the north in areas like, Connecticut and Rhode Island. Those areas don't seem to be seeing much snow out of this event anymore due to that big shift to the north. And in terms of snowfall accumulation, again, we're too early to really be talking about specifics here, but this is the general picture. We'll have the heaviest of the snowfall back up into northern New England in comparison to where it was before in central New England. Make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.